Purse nets are made by fixing a rope tied to both ends of the net on the shore, loading the other rope and the net onto a boat, sailing the boat out to sea, and placing the net parallel to the shore while running the other rope. Rope back to shore, then pull both ropes to shore. In the past, it was pulled by humans, but now it is pulled by machines. The structure consists of a bag-like net, fishing net, at the top, followed by coarse mesh at both ends, and then a rope. When fishing, the bag-like net is still done by hand, even today when mechanization has advanced. Purse seine fishing purse. In the prefecture, fishing is done on the sandy beaches from Fujisawa City to Odawara, and although some people still consider it a traditional fishing activity, it is now mainly used as a seine net for tourists. Purse fishing allows you to catch a variety of fish depending on the season, including horse mackerel, sardines and whiting. If you go on a sightseeing fishing trip, you can see many different types of fish and take your catch home. There are also places where whiting is fried on the spot. When fishing with purse seines, many fleets carry a variety of nets and they choose the one that best suits the fish they are catching before leaving port. Typically, horse mackerel are caught with 10 sections, 33.6 mm, and sardines are caught with 12 sections, 27.5 mm. To prepare before fishing, check for any defects in the connection of the line on the fishing side, net out to sea first, and the metal fittings, bag loops, on the sinking side, net bottom, for any defects. While moving to the fishing grounds is just a matter of checking. Basically, the lines are carefully aligned and the metal fittings are connected after each catch, so there is very little to do when fishing. After finishing the departure work, everyone except the captain, who operates the ship, will go into the cabin and spend time alone. In the cabin, people spend their free time, eat snacks, take a nap, and use their smartphones. When arriving at the fishing grounds, many light boats use onboard lights and underwater lights to collect fish. I collect fish until I see enough fish, but if there are no good samples, I sometimes collect fish all night. If a certain amount of response is confirmed by the light boat's fish finder and sonar, this will be reported to the main boat, net carrier, and the net will be released. Purse fishing accounted for 40.8%, bottom trawling 16.2% and net fishing 11.7%. Purse fishing is a type of fishing in which a net is dropped to envelop a school of fish. The net is quickly pressed to the bottom and pulled out, carried out in teams called fleets. In bottom trawling, a large bag-shaped net is dropped to the ocean floor and pulled by a dragline to catch fish, shrimp, crabs, clams, etc. on the ocean floor. In fixed net fishing, the net is fixed with stakes or anchors in the fish's path. Migratory fish are trapped and caught. Other methods include line fishing, in which saury are caught using baited branch lines and hooks attached to 100 to 150 kilometers long lines, and net fishing, and squid fishing. Takes advantage of the saury's tendency to congregate in the light. When a school of fish is found by fish finder, sonar or visual inspection, it is wrapped in a species-appropriate fishing net, sardine, mackerel, flatfish, tuna net, etc., and loaded onto a fishing transport vessel. Depending on the method of operation, there are one-way and two-way fire extinguishing methods, and in some cases fishing lights are allowed. The tonnage classification system for large and medium-sized purse seine fishing is for vessels with a net capacity of 15 tons to 760 tons, and the composition of the fleet varies depending on the method of operation, the carrying capacity of the vessel, net and catch, and the number of trawlers, survey vessels, carriers and reco. It consists of one vessel. The size of the net varies depending on the target fish species, fishing ground conditions, etc., but the length of two nets is about 1,000 meters, the length of one net is about 1,600 to 1,800 meters, and the depth is 100 to 250 meters in both cases. The samaki fishing method has the advantage of being able to reel in the line quickly. Large and medium-sized purse seine fishing is carried out in the waters off Japan, using a fleet of 4 to 6 vessels such as trawlers, search boats, and transport boats, or by a fleet of 2 to 6 vessels. 3 vessels such as trawlers and transport boats. From the perspective of energy saving and reducing operating costs, there are pelagic fisheries such as Japanese mackerel, horse mackerel, mackerel, sardine, tuna, and fisheries mainly catching mackerel. Catching tuna with a single trawler in remote waters. Although the number of fleets has been decreasing year by year, there are currently about 98 large and medium-sized purse seine fleets, producing about 860,000 tons per year, about 103 billion yen, 20% to 30% of Japan's marine catch, and taking into account its land value, it is one of the most important fisheries for Japan's fishery production. Many pelagic fish are born in the seas around Japan and they migrate seasonally, creating large schools, mainly in offshore waters. Pelagic fish are preyed upon by larger fish and crustaceans, and due to natural changes in the ocean, their abundance has increased and decreased significantly over a period of several decades. Currently, mackerel stocks are on the rise, and sardine stocks are showing signs of recovery from low levels. Large and medium-sized purse seine fishing is the most suitable fishing method for pelagic fishing. Has this characteristic. Marine fish can generally be divided into pelagic fish and demersal fish. Pelagic fish are so called because they live in the surface to middle layers near the sea surface, while demersal fish live in the bottom layer. The characteristics of pelagic fish, which are prolific coastal migratory fish, are that they undergo repeated long-term fluctuations, the dominant species changes, replaces species, the distribution area expands and contracts as resources increase and decrease, and they live in large schools. They have feeding grounds in the north and spawning grounds in the south, feeding and migrating north from spring to summer and migrating south and spawning from autumn to winter. If we look at the area around Japan, we can roughly divide it into pelagic fish distributed along the coast of the Kuroshio and Oyashio regions on the Pacific side and pelagic fish distributed in the warm Tsushima region from the East China Sea to the Sea of Japan, mainly in the west. The changes in dominant species observed in recent years are herring right-pointing arrow, sardine right-pointing arrow, horse mackerel plus saury right-pointing arrow, chub mackerel right-pointing arrow, sardine right-pointing arrow, horse mackerel plus saury. These are the main factors in fish species replacement. The changes in saury and mackerel are almost synchronous. There is currently no high-quality species, but sardine stocks are showing signs of recovery. The extent of variation, amplitude, of dominant species varies depending on the fish species, but the variation of sardines is particularly large and noticeable in marginal areas of their distribution. For example, in the waters off eastern Hokkaido off Kushiro, Hokkaido, a marginal purse seine fishery, equivalent to foraging and northward migration, there are years when there are no catches during periods of low water levels. However, the purse seine fishery was established during periods of high catch levels, such as the late 1960s and early 1970s for rock mackerel, 280,000 tons in 1974, and sardines in the 1980s, 1.2 million tons in 1987. Regarding the trend of pelagic fish resources, except for black mackerel, which is showing a declining trend, other resources are either unchanged or increasing, and it can be said that pelagic fish resources are generally showing a recovery trend. The catch across Japan using large and medium-sized purse seine, excluding large and medium-sized purse seine nets targeting pelagic tuna, is the main fishery, accounting for 20.1 to 30.6%, 2010 to 2021, of the total marine fishery production in Japan, record highs in 2020 and 2021. The production ratio of large and medium-sized purse seine fishing in marine fisheries has increased from about 20% 10 years ago to 30% for the second consecutive year and is becoming increasingly important. Under the TAC, allowed catch, system that began in 1997, resource management by stock group began in 2020 with the aim of achieving MSY, maximum sustainable yield. I hope that under the new resource management, resources will be used more fully and efficiently. Under the TAC, which aims at sustainable production, the purse seine fishery, which is considered a mass production fishery, will not fall into overfishing. Purse seine fishery operates effectively by moving fishing grounds according to the seasonal pelagic resources, contributing to the stable supply of seafood for the people and maintaining and enhancing self-sufficiency. In the overseas purse seine fishing industry, we carry out purse seine fishing operations all year round, with tuna as the main fish species in the fishing grounds in the Central and Western Pacific, about a week's sailing time from ports in Japan. Search for schools of fish using fishing equipment such as bird radar, sonar, and fish finders. In addition, it is a fishing method in which schools of fish are detected by searching for them using binoculars or helicopters, and then the schools of fish are entangled by dropping fishing nets loaded onto the boat. It is a group fishing, using 3 to 4 small boats attached to a fishing boat for support, and cooperation between each boat is essential. To determine the size of the boat, a large fishing boat that can carry 700 to 1,100 tons of fish, bonito, is used. There are 25 to 30 crew members on board, and the amount of fish caught in each fishing trip ranges from 0 to 200 tons. The fish caught are frozen in brine, frozen storage, on board, and when the ship is full, they are returned to a port in Japan and unloaded. There are 28 foreign purse seine vessels operating in Japan, 4 of which belong to Fukuichi Fisheries Company, Limited. Large and medium-sized purse seine fishing is carried out in the waters off Japan, using a fleet of 4 to 5 vessels such as trawlers, search boats and transport boats, or by a fleet of 2 to 5 vessels. 3 vessels such as trawlers and transport boats from the perspective of energy saving and reducing operating costs. There are pelagic fisheries such as Japanese mackerel, horse mackerel, mackerel, sardine, tuna, and fisheries that mainly catch mackerel. Tuna fishing with a single trawler in the open sea. *1 When we detect a school of fish using a fish finder, sonar. *2 Or by visual inspection, we wrap the school of fish in a fishing net suitable for the fish species, sardine, mackerel, tuna, etc., and load it onto a transport boat to catch it. Depending on the method of operation, there are one-way and two-way fires, and the use of fishing lights may be permitted in some cases. The tonnage hierarchy of large and medium-sized purse seine fishing is for vessels with a net capacity of 15 tons to 760 tons, and the composition of the fleet varies depending on the method of operation, the capacity of the vessel, net and catch, and the number of net boats, exploration boats, transport boats and reco boards. size of the net varies depending on the target fish species, fishing ground conditions, etc., but the length of 2 nets is about 1,000 meters, the length of 1 net is about 1,600 to 1,800 meters, and the depth is 100 meters for both. That is about 250 meters. 2. The samaki fishing method has the advantage of being able to reel in fish quickly. The catch of horse mackerel, and sardines takes a day, while the catch of tuna and tuna offshore takes 2 to 3 weeks. In purse seine fishing, fleet size and schedules vary depending on the season, fishing area and the fish species targeted. Most horse mackerel, and sardines are caught on day trips, but seasonal skipjack and tuna fishing is sometimes done offshore, with 80-ton or 135-ton nets, sometimes double takes on 19-ton boats. Large purse seine vessels, 350 tons, also known as offshore purse seine fishing, pursue skipjack and tuna in the South Pacific and Indian Oceans, but these large purse seine vessels account for about 25% of all large and medium-sized purse seine vessels. In offshore purse seine fishing, operations can last from 2 to 3 weeks to a month and a half. The crew of a fleet can be up to 50 to 60 people. We lead successful fishing by combining the strength of search boats, light boats, trawlers, transport boats, ships and people. Purse fishing involves forming a fleet of boats and using giant nets to encircle schools of migratory floating fish near the surface of the sea. There are differences in how a fleet is organized depending on the region, but on the Pacific side, the fleet mainly consists of 2 search boats, light boats, looking for schools of fish, a main boat, trawler, carrying the net, and 2 transport boats carrying the caught fish. They form a fleet, called a fleet. We search for schools of fish using fish finders and high-tech equipment, and as soon as we find them, we prepare to cast the net. An 80-ton trawler encircles a school of fish with a net 1 kilometer long, 250 meters deep, spinning at full speed. Once wound, the bottom rope is tightened with a winch and the net is lifted immediately. The net is then hauled onto the boat. The transport boat approaches the area of the net underwater and begins to unload the fish with the triangular net. Each operation lasts 2 to 3 hours and the fishermen operate 2 or 3 times a night as they move from one fishing area to another. Large and medium-sized purse seine fishing. Large and medium-sized purse seine fishing. Over the course of a year, they learn through their bodies the interaction between the boat and the people, casting the net, encircling the fish and releasing the fish. New fishermen board the trawl boat for the first time and help cast the net, encircle the fish and unload the fish. It is said that the balance between the movement of the boat and the work on the boat is difficult to master. It is important that all fish finders, net operators, fish unloaders and fish transporters understand the overall flow, firmly protect their positions and perform their work safely and accurately. It takes about a year to understand the chain of tasks and be proactive. Working cycle for large and medium-sized purse seine fishing. A giant net 1 kilometer long and more than 250 meters deep is dropped into the sea to encircle and catch fish. In addition to the main vessel, large-scale fishing is carried out by forming a fleet of exploration vessels to find fish schools and transport vessels to store and transport the catch. Naturally, the catch is large.